The NAEC has given me the opportunity to present here, and I'm excited to present on safety. My name is Craig Jones. I'm the owner of Country Home Elevator. I've been in the industry since 1988. I've been working in the industry ever since then. I started as a computer-aided design draftsman with American Stair Glide back in Grandview, Missouri. Started learning how to design and build systems for the elevator industry, from stairway lifts to residential elevators to wheelchair lifts, lulas. We do all those products. Do a few commercial type elevators, so really had to learn the industry from start to finish. And that I'm on the ASME 5.3 and 5.2 code committees, so get an opportunity to affect the code long term by slowly grinding away at adding new things to the code language. So we appreciate all the folks who took time to invest in getting this done for us. If you don't know how things go in a process of trying to get documents or codes or other things changed, it's a slow and arduous process. It's not something that happens overnight, and you got to get consensus with a lot of folks and get that consistency of, okay, here's what we agree on is going to be safety for our team and our crews. So presentation today is safety on the job. We're going to look at a couple things. Field mechanic safety, sales team safety, office staff and field entrapment calls, and review and discussion. Again, I said this is a participation type thing, so as we go through this, definitely we'll be asking for some of your input on what you do, what you don't do, what you have familiarity with. So it's really kind of an open forum like that, so we get good participation. Learning objectives today. Learning objectives are to learn about field and safety, sales team safety. Code references, we'll go over some of the elevator safety field handbook, the new 2025 version, fresh, hot off the presses. And if you're good in participation, you might go home with one of these down here. So just keep that in mind, right? ASME A17.4, just a quick thing on that, talking about the emergency use, and the A17.1 and OSHA 10 and OSHA 30. All sorts of fun stuff, right? So from a field mechanic perspective, right, what are we really looking at? We've got all these things, but how do we implement the sections in the daily operation of a field mechanic? We kind of cover these sections, the field mechanic in charge, what's that all about? Emergency evacuation, pre-safety survey, eye and face, head protection, foot protection, personal fall arrest, guardrails, maintenance barriers, ladders, all the different things we're talking about there in the OSHA 30. So, what is the mechanic in charge, or who is your mechanic in charge, right? Everybody understand that term and terminology of field, who is that guy in charge? A lot of times we're tasked with sending guys out to the field and they don't really understand that concept. There's two guys there, and they don't really realize how important it is that they completely understand their responsibilities on this. And that sometimes falls on us because we've not given them a clear understanding of what that responsibility is. We've given them a task and say, okay, go install this piece of equipment, but then sometimes they put their blinders on because they're worried about what's for lunch, they're worried about what is happening somewhere else, they're getting messages from someone else, their head sometimes isn't in the game, and that's where we find most accidents happening, is when we're not clearly paying attention to the safety issues. Did they do a safe site assessment, right? All project that you go on to, you should at least do some form of a site safety evaluation. If you're not having your team do that on a job basis, every job they go to, you're not really following the instructions or following our guidelines to keep a project safe. They have communicated expectations to the building owner or a general contractor. Most of if you go through the normal CAT or CET program, it tells you about how to communicate with the building owner or the person in charge on the job site and know who they are, so that if you go into a site, you know, number one, who you're going to be talking with, number two, do they have a good, clear safety plan? Because there are some general contractors who have a very clear protocol. You're going to do a safety write-up on every job, every day you go in. How many people do have a daily safety requirement for your guys? No. Several. It really should be something that we're doing consistently. And even if it's just kind of a tacit thing that they go through and say, hey, do I have my helmet, hard hat? Do I have proper safety barriers? Is the hoistway being used for a trash bin? You know, all the things that we look at when we go to a job site, that's the thing the mechanic in charge has to really look at every time. Also looking out for the rest of their team and prepping the rest of their team for that so that they know to be looking out for those same things. Do they know how to safely carry out that team member rescue, right? It's the worst possible thing that you would ever want to have to do is if someone falls in a shaftway on their lifeline, then you know, what happens from that point? Have you trained your technician or team member, mechanic in charge, to be able to be competent to know how to do that, or to at least effect a safe response to evacuating that person once they've done a fall? Do they know how to safely carry out the team member rescue? They also, can they walk the passenger through entrapment? So the person or the mechanic in charge really is the one who needs to know if someone gets stuck in an elevator, how do I step them through that? How many of you have dispatch centers, or how do you all handle it in that scenario? Who's your person that's going to be the go-to person for a entrapment? If you get a phone call, does it just go to your normal reception office? And then how do we handle that, right? So our mechanic in charge is maybe the one we're going to go to if something gets an entrapment and we got to dispatch them out. So emergency evacuation, we always see these things. In case of fire, do not use the elevator or lifts, use the stairs. So how do we get out? So in the emergency evacuation section, they're talking about going to your job site and just knowing where the exits are within the building. That's the basic standard in this, is trying to determine, you know, how you get in and out of your building. If you've got some complexes that are very large, multi-story, maybe you've got 10 or 15 units on the project, then how do you get in and out of the buildings? Let's say you've got a facility that's a secure lockdown facility. We've worked in prisons before where it's a very clear process of getting in and out. Well, you really have to know what your emergency plan is if you're sending someone into a facility like that, right? Very different scenarios, and we've got every possible scenario of elevators in mine shafts, elevators in malls. We've got them all over, so you've got to have your team member understanding. They have to know what their evacuation plan is. Pre-safety survey. This is kind of one of your normal hoistways, right? One of your normal pits. What are the hazards or obvious hazards of a building type, right? If you look at a building type and you do a pre-survey on it, you know that we had this come up recently where they asked us in the pre-construction documents if we had any experience with frozen scenarios or gases. Because it was a meatpacking processing plant. So they had CO2 gases and frozen gases, things that were a potential hazard. So I've got to, as an owner of that business, communicate that to my team and say, hey, you're going to go into this processing plant that has potential hazards. If they have chlorine or other things, maybe you're going into a scenario where the elevator goes to a pool. You at least have to understand what your evacuation emergency plan is going to be in that scenario, because it's not just your normal, application of a single-story hotel type elevator or a school elevator. During the construction, there are no fire alarms, right? So what happens if the fire alarm, there's no fire alarm? You're in a new construction project and it catches fire. You've got to have a plan for that. So being prepared really is the important part, so that you prepped your technicians and they know, hey, here's what my evacuation plan is, here's my pre-survey. A lot of times we go into project sites and we find open balconies or open hoistways where the entrances are not protected. That's something that, as the mechanic in charge, really needs to be the first one on site. If he's there, he says, hey, I've got open entrances here, how do we protect those? We've got to make sure that they show the signs, hey, there's an open hoistway here. How many times you go to a job site and it looks like this and it's a new construction, right? We're trying to send our guys in there, and the first thing they have to do is clean out the pit or have the contractor clean out the pit. So in your pre-survey, you're looking at all the things that could be a problem for your guys up front. What are the hazards and obvious? I just talked about that, the trash in the hoistway. That's actually one of our job sites that we came to, and our guys are always like, well, what do we do? It's like, well, you either do it yourself and clean it out, or you get your contractor involved to get it cleaned up for you. Also looking at it from the terms and conditions of it. So if you're in the sales side of the business and you're looking at it, your contract, you're going to find that cleanup and trash removal is typically your responsibility, and sometimes even you get back charged for that. That expense and expenditure, you've got to know and communicate to your team, hey, don't leave your trash there because it's going to cause either a safety risk or a safety hazard, or it's going to cause us additional expense to get back charged because we didn't do our job cleaning up. It's the kind of thing that you want to communicate to your team. Hey, don't make it someone else's fault, but figure out a solution to it to make your job site clean and safe. Here's also the new little thing that is coming out, but as Dave said the other day, this is not a mandatory thing, but it's becoming something that we're seeing a lot more construction job sites that are saying this is a mandatory item to have the chin straps, even the built-in visor and guards. Just a little bit different concept. You're going to get guys that team members that they just, they're going to buck that all the way because they have their old hard hat and they've got that, stickered up, and it's what they have used forever. So getting them to change to something new may be a challenge. There's the maintenance barriers. If you've got applications like this, the biggest rage over the past 10 years has been MRLs, right? So if MRLs are in your maintenance fleet, then guess what? Your guys are going to be maintaining a piece of equipment where? In the hallway, at the front of the entrance, right? So if you don't have a clear plan for blocking and barricading around the front of that entrance in an occupied school, in an occupied hotel, in an occupied facility where there's people moving in a mall, right? Then you've got your open potential for a safety hazard for public spaces. There is some trade-offs to those MRLs. Yeah, they're convenient. It's less footprint. But from my perspective, once you jam all the electronics in there, how many guys love to work on MRLs where all the equipment is jammed up in the controller and in the bucket of the door, right? Not a fun thing, right? But figuring out that and making sure how we've communicated to our technicians that we create those barriers is part of this process and making sure that we've done a project or prepared the project to be safe. Assessing the workplace hazards. So there are some assessment forms that we've got to fill out. Service and repair or PPEs. Doing the hazard assessment form and the job analysis forms. Is that something mandatory everyone's doing? Mostly, right? There are some jobs that we're not spending the time or effort to do and do the hazard assessment forms, but it really needs to just be an automatic with your team so that once they go to a job site, they're comfortable with the process of saying, yeah, I've got to look at how I'm getting my team into the job site. I have to look at how my barriers are. I need to look at the power requirements. Are the power where it needs to be? Is it properly locked out and tagged out? So that's kind of on the technician or mechanic side. What about the sales side, right? How many have sales team members that go and actually do evaluations on job sites, right? So if you're sending a salesperson out to do evaluations on job sites, how much of the OSHA 30 or OSHA 10 or any of that OSHA training do they have? Have you all had your sales team trained in the OSHA 30, OSHA 10 type stuff to know what to look for? In New York, they have to, okay. So if you think about it, we're sending people out who are not the mechanical side of it, but they're the ones that are in charge of looking at jobs and evaluating, okay, well, what is it that we need to replace here? What do we do to do a modernization? If they're looking at those elements, they also need to do it in a safe way, right? If they're going to poke their head in the hoistway, do they know how to look in a hoistway safely? Have we prepared them for it, and have we given them the right tools to be able to do that safely? So same thing with PPE. They're going to still have to have the proper equipment. They may have to have hard hats depending on if it's an active construction site. Definitely want to have them in, I think there's another slide come up here on that for a quick, here we go. Sales PPE, right? Are they in loafers and steel toes, or cashmere coats and high-vis vests, right? We got to prep our sales team members to know, if you're going to a job site, know the job site rules and regulations in advance so that you're not running into it like Mr. GQ there. Pre-planning for the field. Some of the things sales team members can do, they're going to be the first ones to the job, or the first ones to look at the specs on the project and understand what are the requirements for this job. They're also going to gather all that data and bring it into the team. But how many of you have actual sales to field conversations where that information is transferred from the sales team to the operations side of it? You have a clear process for that you've got a clear handover meeting, you got a clear, hey, I sold this job, here it is, or even maybe in the process, you start the process with a salesperson and a field mechanic looking at the job to determine, okay, what are my real issues I've got to address? It takes a pretty unique salesperson to have the knowledge of a project and products to be able to make the combination of, okay, I see that I need rollers and guides, I see that I need new packing, I see that I need an ADA phone replacement, but it may take a mechanic to look at something more in depth to say, okay, well, what about the 5-year test? Has it had a 5-year test? Is it up for renewal? Maybe even office people looking at it from the standpoint of saying, let's look in the state records to determine, is this something that hasn't had a test in 2 or 3 years? We're seeing a lot of that out there, that a lot of building owners are deciding that, that vertical platform lift, we don't need to get it recertified or relooked at on an annualized basis. So coming up with that information in advance is pretty important to get to your field team. Also looking at it from a planning standpoint, can we pull a trailer up to the job site, right? And that's stuff that you can assist with in the advanced side of it, a sales team member, to say, okay, how's this project going to go on? Is it something we need to have a SkyTrack or a forklift required? Or are we delivering this unit to the top of a 15-story building in downtown? So not only do I have to have the machine there, but I also have to have street blocking and flagging, all of those things on the safety side of it. May even have to have permits. A lot of big cities require you to get street blocking permits. I did a project in Washington, D.C. Many years ago, training on some residence elevators, and we had to have a guy take the equipment on a trailer and just keep driving around the block till he got to where he could park it, we could get it offloaded, and he had to drive it around and drive it back. And there's no parking in certain areas, right? So you've got to look at it from the perspective of, hey, what are we going to do to make sure that we have a safe job site, and if we have to have permits in advance. I even heard that in some cities there's folks that just do nothing more than take care of your tickets and permits, right? You have that? It's crazy. I work in St. Louis and Kansas City, and we've had a couple of projects like that where we had to have some flagging and traffic stopping, but a lot of times it's going to be in the contract documents to say this is your responsibility, right? So as the sales side of things, you've got to broadcast that out to your field team so they're prepared for that, right? They're checking things to make sure it's safe in advance. Contractual communication, site safety is what we were talking about. It's like you're going to lose a lot of money if you're not paying attention to what's in the contract documents up front that says that if you don't do this, this, and this, we're going to fine you for it. We had a contract come in just recently that we looked at and said, we're just going to line through all of this because we don't want that guy following us around and giving us fines for getting this, or this. Now, it's better if our team members know that, hey, here are the basic safety parameters, and they always follow those. But if you've got a contract that you've taken on that says you're going to get fined for all these things, and they pay someone to be on that job to do nothing but that, I see James shaking his head because it probably happens a lot in New York, right? Yeah. So non-compliant safety tools, looking at it and making sure your teams know, hey, if you're taking something on the job site, did you check the cord? Did you check the battery? Did you check the safety of the equipment? Do you have the right ladders, right? Insufficient fall protection. Did you set it up as a sales team member to make sure that I-joist is going to be there for us to attach to for a safety line, right? Those are all pre-planning things to make sure your job is going to be safety that you have to do for the rest of your team. Be a partner, not a fine payer. Communicate safety terms to the team, right? That really is the role of the starting process in the sales for your company. Be a good photographer and documenter, right? So now those are little aramid rope type gearless, right? In a very odd looking hoistway, there doesn't seem to be great access to that. Maybe it's just from the car top, right? You're going to really need to know how your technician is going to manage that type of a scenario. Where's the fall protection? How many folks do the entrance style fall protection when they go on a job site? You have some type of thing you spread across the entrance. Is that pretty common for what you use on a normal basis? On a new construction, you're going to have stuff in the top of the hoistway, but for existing applications, maybe a little different. Help identify issues in advance. That's really your job, is to document all that. Don't be the last person on a job site before an accident. If you were the last person on the job and you failed to make sure that the barriers were up on the project, then you may own that responsibility of making sure that you communicate to the contractor that it's also his responsibility to keep that job site safe. If you see it, document it, secure the unit in safe mode, lock it out, tag it out before you leave. Make sure you've communicated that to whoever the building owner or the person in charge on the job site is. Develop a clear plan to return the unit to service. Whether you're while you're gathering all the code compliance details of the unit, be sure to have a timeline for the customer, right? So we send a mechanic out, we do some work, and then they don't hear from us for a month, right? You've got to have a clear plan and process. Anyone have a very clear process that you use? Is it electronic? Is it just, we've kind of gotten off paper tickets, right? Most of the companies that are doing the electronic systems of project management, those things help us through that process, being able to document it quickly and move it through the process. Provide updates if you can't make that happen for the customer, right? If you know you've got a long lead time item on an operator or something, or longer lead time on getting a controller replacement, then you need to broadcast that to the customer, make sure they understand that there's going to be some additional time on that. Plan for a walkthrough of the changes and how they will impact the safety of the unit, right? It's really what we're doing is trying to, sometimes a modernization or maintenance is something that that customers dread because they know it's a monthly expense. But if you're setting the customer up for understanding that things that you're doing are adding safety and reducing their risk, then it's a better communication of why we're doing the things that we're doing. Prepare your field team for a safe project. Communicate the safety plan and code issues to your team, right? We've got to have those team meetings with our field teams and prepare them for each job site, because each job site's going to have something new or different. If you have a script that someone follows when you get a call, is it just training over time? Is it something that we really need to spend some more time with on that person that is taking those phone calls to make sure that first voice they get has a clear understanding of what's going to happen or how they're going to transfer the call, and has a process for it. In A17-4, the emergency guide for personnel evacuation from cabs and hoistways, it was really set up to help the emergency personnel. But if your team doesn't know how to get them from the step 1 through 5 in that process, then you need to spend more time with them teaching them that process. Pre-planning for that, for emergency calls, who's that first person to respond, or who are your first person you're going to talk to in that process? Who are you going to send that initial call to? If there's an incident or entrapment, do y'all have a clear plan for what happens if you have an incident? You got something written down that says, hey, if we know there's an entrapment, we automatically dispatch ourselves and fire an emergency? Right? There's got to be some written plan or some process you've communicated to your team that says, here's how we handle this emergency. Otherwise, it's just going to be a frantic person on the phone saying, oh my gosh, someone's entrapped, what do we do? Right? If it always has to be elevated to the ownership level, or it always has to be elevated to someone else in the company, then you're just making a transfer that then slows the process of getting a good response. The A17-4 is the guide for emergency personnel. Did your manufacturer provide one of those? How many have seen their manufacturers or several manufacturers' guides for A17-4? Do you know it's required, right? It is required to have a plan on how you evacuate someone from an elevator. And so if you make a piece of equipment, then you've got to have at least some clear guidelines on that. It's not just an owner's manual, but it's a clear step-by-step process. How do you do a shutdown? How do you do a reset? If we're not getting those and we're not teaching our team members how to use those, then there's maybe a little extra stuff we need to start doing with our team members to make sure we've got a good setup plan for them in advance. I actually asked someone recently in a code meeting, I said, hey, can you send me your A17-4 evacuation plan? Oh yeah, we'll get that to you. And I still haven't seen it. He said, well, I've got to work on it. I've got to update it a little bit. So if you don't have those from the manufacturer, know that they're something the manufacturers need to provide and have to you, so that you've got a clear safety plan for evacuating someone from an elevator.
Excuse me, Greg.
Yes, go ahead.
For the most part, emergency evacuation plans are required in machine rooms for commercial elevators.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same requirement for residential?
So A17-4 really covers all of that. So I've got residential elevator manufacturers who do provide those for us. So yes, we've got that requirement even in residential. So yeah, and that's why I say I asked a residential manufacturer about it, and I said, can you provide me that? The reason I ask it is because I've had to make an entrapment removal recently with someone with that product, and it wasn't easy. The methods to try and get some of the residential through the floor systems evacuated, it's a big challenge. And their response was they would pay for and provide you with any of the things you damaged to get them out. It's like, oh, great. Just interesting. But yeah, there has to be a plan for how you get someone out of a residential and commercial projects. And a lot of times it's going to be these guys, right? You're going to have the fire department that also should be trained on it. Now there are some training courses that firefighters take, but I used to be a fire chief in my local rural area, and rural guys didn't know hardly anything about, elevator entrapments or that, because they didn't have very many elevators. We had elevators at the school, but we didn't have 10 and 20 story buildings. If you're a firefighter in California, guess what? You're ripping the doors off every time you have an entrapment, right? It's like, tell me, is anyone here from California? So tell me a little bit about what your issue, or how you extricate someone from a elevator in California.
Well, I think what you're alluding for is we don't have
Hold on.
access.
Go ahead.
We don't have access, emergency access keys
Right, for the hallway.
for the hallway, yeah. So we string it, we have coat hangers, we figured out how to bend wire to pick a door lock.
right? To pick a lock, right? It's the thing that I didn't understand. I'm confused about that because in my world, if you can't unlock a door from the outside with the proper key, it's a safety key, it's a unique key. It just seems contrary to normal safe operation. You're going to have to either pick the lock, which doesn't seem right. It's like, well, why not use a proper safety tool to do that, right? So it's one of the things that you have to know about your area, your jurisdiction, you know, what the requirements are, you know, and communicate that to your staff. Hey, if you're in California and you know you get an emergency call and someone's in the elevator, they're going to have to either be manually raised or lowered to the floor, or they're going to have to, like John says, pick the lock from the outside, which seems to be a little contrary to the simplification of saying how do we easily get someone out of an elevator. The guide was started in 1972, and they've been updating it. The most recent, I think, said was 1999. But again, it's about, there's been some changes to the rescue, team organization and training, evacuation procedures for elevators and cars. Everybody thinks that once an elevator's stalled that you just crank them down on the top and you get them out, right? That's what you've seen in all the movies. Not always always that. But it is definitely one of the most risky operations for a firefighter to do if they don't know how to secure the car, right? If they don't understand the process of why did it stop and what's making it still stay in its position, then they're taking a huge risk if they don't know how to secure the car at that point. It's odd that we don't have more collaboration between fire rescue and elevator mechanics to make sure that process gets done safely. Product knowledge on the shutdown and restart. You know, what information is provided. It was good to hear the thing this morning about the AI and being able to look through the training manuals and understand what the processes are. That may be a tool that we can use going forward to make this process a whole lot easier for helping with shutdown and startups again. But the question is, how far do you let that information go? Do you let it go to the building maintenance guy? Do you let it go to just a general person in the facility? You know, that can also cause an additional risk by letting someone know that shutdown and restart process that there isn't a authorized elevator personnel. What training have you done to provide homeowners or facility personnel on how to use their system, right? Do we all have a clear turnover process? You get a unit done, what's your turnover process? Is it just, here's the owner's manual and good luck? Or do you take a real clear time where you've already set it up with that building owner to say, on this date, we're going to go through a training process so that you know what happens if the fire alarm system goes off. How do you reset that, right? If the system shuts down due to a power failure, is it going to automatically come back, or do you have to do a reboot process? Really helping our customers understand the product better really should be our main responsibility on turnover on a piece of equipment. Because if we're not doing that, we've had a lot of homeowner customers that get residence elevators, and when I hear the conversation about they're entrapped and they don't know how to use the emergency key to get someone out, I've done a number of those phone calls, and it's stressful, it's hard, it's difficult to talk to someone over the phone about how to get someone out of an elevator or how to undo a lock. So we've added to our website a quick little video snippet of how to unlock a lunar key from the outside, how to unlock a safety door from the inside. So those things that you think about, you really need to put in the hands of the customer to say, here's the way to safely use your piece of equipment, and simple fixes to get it back in service if it's something that they can safely do. Have you trained your team members on emergency operation of the elevator? Sometimes even our own technicians don't know some of the safety elements of the unit. So really you need to spend time with them to make sure they've got a clear understanding of what it takes to do that. So now we've got the new two-way video communication type stuff, right? There's several people here who have those products and have those systems. So how do you handle that system now? So we've had some changes to the code. The 2019 code says now we've got to have the video and audio type systems. So can you just have that video feed go to your front desk and that person sitting at the front desk be able to handle that per code? No. That person that's on the other end of the phone has to have some pretty clear criteria of what they have to be able to do. They have to be able to interpret multiple languages. They have to be able to read sign language. They have to be able to do a number of things that your average company is not going to have the capacity to do. I really appreciate the folks that are doing that and are setting those things up to be able to have a resource to then meet code compliance with that system. Because once you get the video monitoring in the elevator cab, there's a lot of work going into trying to get those set up and then maintain them, right? Not a simple process. It used to be fairly easy when you were just an ADA push-to-talk phone, but now we're going into the video age where you got a lot more complex systems that you're going to have to make connected. A lot of programming and testing. What's the regulation for programming and checking of that system? If it's got a monitoring system, does it have to be checked and monitored consistently, right? So making sure that you've got a clear understanding of what that is and set your building owner up for that. What's that timeline that they need to check it? The fire hat and the other communications device, how often does that get checked? Reviewing and discussion, trying to get involved in the safety process. We talked a little bit about tech training, sales team training, entrapments. What issues do you see and how do you see using this in your daily operation? Do most of you all use this in the daily operation for your sales or your field teams, right? Inside here there's a sign-off sheet for your handbook acknowledgement, right? That should be almost everybody's first onboarding process. You hire a new apprentice and they immediately get this and get it signed off on, and you get them going through it and do some training classes on it so they're able to really understand the basics of safety. Discussions or questions? Anybody have any ideas or thoughts on the elevator safety handbook?
Should say, correctly, you make your company logo on it as you
All right.
identify it as part of your safety process. For your learning driveway, you have to show your protocol. So
Perfect. Evan said that you can also get these printed with your own company logo on them so that then they can be used as your own specific safety program or part of your safety program and incorporated in your own, because some companies won't accept just the general industry standard book as the proper safety thing. But if you get it logoed with your own logo, then it does become part of your own safety program. So that's definitely a good add to that. Yes?
Shameless plug, but thanks to Elevator World, NAEC, and BI, the foundation has a QR code on the last page. So every industry employee can have those every month.
Aha, perfect, thank you. Right there, QR code. So gives you some additional information on the back of it. Everybody's been going to QR codes and all those things. They're really handy things to be able to jump to information that you can get. So this says the Safety Foundation and the Employee Safety Handbook. So definitely a good additional item that you can look at. Any other questions for what we're talking about today?
You mentioned OSHA 10 and OSHA 30 training for sales teams.
So yeah. So if you look at what you're asking a sales team member to do, if they're not just a strictly office person, then if you give them the OSHA 10 and OSHA 30 training classes, they can see things when they're on the job site and then better prepare your field team for, hey, here's some potential hazards you have on job site. Even recommending, you're probably going to need to take these type of lifting tools, or you need to make sure that, hey, when you get on the job site, we talk to the contractor about putting the lifting points in, but are they in at job site? So just having them be aware, the more team members that are trained in the basics of safety, then the better that's going to translate into the rest of our team working safely.
Thank you.
Yep. In the back?
I just wanted to say how great it was for adding new tables in there for like the silica and things like that. That was really great.
Right, perfect. So the silica table that's been added allows you to look at it and say how many hours are you exposed to a certain type of process, whether it's drilling concrete or sawing concrete. They mentioned yesterday in the other meeting with Dot and Dave about using that table, and it really is helpful to be able to go to and say, okay, if I'm on a job site and I have 50 holes to drill in a wall, what should I be using? Should I be using a mitigating process by using a vacuum, or should I be using a respirator? And then also looking at the rest of the people that are around you. They mentioned yesterday about a project site where they were doing saw cutting at the entrance. And so that really made it impossible for the team member to work because it was full of silica dust and they were doing nothing to mitigate that hazard from it. So definitely a good add to the book. Well, is that everything? There's a picture here. This is my QR code that allows you to scan it and get me if you want to. I don't know, maybe you can get it back there, but that'll get you my contact information. If you wanted to get the presentation, just scan that and get it to me and I'll get you the presentation. Been in this industry a long time. This lady in the middle is Jan Brown. It's Michael Mahoney on the right side there. They started me in the industry and she was the voice of American Stair Glide way back many years ago. We happen to have a little event get together in Belton, Missouri this summer. And it's interesting knowing and meeting a lot of people that are connected with the industry. And NAEC is really a fantastic organization to learn the trade and learn from people who have had the experiences that you learn something new every time you come to a meeting. Get to network, and I appreciate that. So if there's nothing else, I appreciate the time and look forward to seeing you all in the other classes, and thank NAEC for this opportunity. So appreciate it. Thank you.